Go back. All right. During the classical period, which is the 5th century BCE, the constitutions of the various polis differed, but their societies were very similar. Citizens ran the polis. Only Athenian males over 17 years old, whose father had been a citizen and whose mother was the daughter of a citizen, could be citizens. From the age of 7 to 14, a boy would be educated with his peers in the palestra, where he learned wrestling and other physical arts, and the gymnasium, where he practiced those arts with other boys and men. When a boy with the correct parentage reached 17, he was then enrolled in a deme, one of the districts of the city. As a citizen, the young man had the right and obligation to serve on a jury, in the assembly, and in the hoplite phalanx, which was a military organization. He could hold public office, own land, and receive free corn distributions when they were made. About half of the Athenian population consisted of citizens, their wives and daughters. The other half was made up of medics and slaves, mostly the former. Medics were foreigners more or less permanently resident in Athens. They controlled manufacturing, banking, and commerce. They were subject to a head tax, could not own a house or land, and had only restricted access to the courts. All medics had citizen patrons who offered them legal protection and often participated in the economic activities of the metic. Medics could serve as rowers in the fleet. Medics could serve as rowers in the fleet, where they shared the benches with poor citizens, and in times of trouble, medics could join the forces defending the city. Slaves were common in Greek society, and families of even modest means owned them. Most families had one or two to help with farming or craft work. Wealthy families had many slaves, some serving in the household, some as pedagogues or guardians of the young boys of the family, and some as craftsmen and small businessmen connected with the economic activities of the family. Some of the latter would live independently and even build up enough money to buy their freedom. Freedmen, former slaves, became metics. From 499 to 479 BCE, the city-states of Greece were locked in a battle to the death with Persia. The Persian War forced the disparate city-states led by Athens and Sparta to unite in the defense of their homeland. Despite the defeat of the Persians at Marathon in 490 BCE, Despite the defeat of the Persians under Darius at Marathon in 490 BCE, his successor, King Xerxes, renewed his attempt to punish and subjugate Greece. Persians defeated the small force at Thermopylae and then defeated the Athenian fleet. Athens was captured and burned, but this turned out to be a Pyrrhic victory. With her back against the wall, the Greek city-states finally, in desperation, roused themselves Finally, with her back against the wall, the Greek city-states, in desperation, roused themselves and united their forces. 479 BCE was the year of Greek victory. Led by the Spartans at Plataea on land, and at the Bay of Salamis, led by the Athenian navy, Persian military ambitions and forces were crushed. When the Athenians returned to their ruined city, they undertook a massive program of rebuilding. The multitude of construction projects made the city a mecca for architects and artists and craftsmen from all over the Greek world. Athens became the center of Hellenic civilization. The celebration of its renewed vigor provided festivals that served as institutional support for poets, dramatists, and other men of literature and art. The glory of education was evident in the new Athens, and teachers became important figures in the life of the agora. To stop, I need water. No. I can eliminate this in editing, if we ever figure out how to edit. All right. During the 5th century BCE, Athens attracted many intellectuals, and it became fashionable among the upper classes to support teachers and thinkers, as well as artists and architects. In this intellectual activity was the beginning of philosophy. In the later 5th century BCE, Athens produced a thinker who changed the way both the Greeks and all who have been influenced by them think about the world. This was Socrates, 469 through 399 BCE, who developed a method for finding the truth about things. He asked simple questions, each derived from the answer to the one before, which led by stages to a true understanding of something. This practice made him popular with the young aristocrats who followed him in the agora. But the point of Socrates' argument was anti-democratic. Democracy rested on the notion that ordinary citizens had the knowledge and wisdom necessary to carry out the affairs of state. Socrates spent his entire adult life putting down that theory. Socrates was accused of corrupting the youth of that city, that is, its young aristocrats. And in 399 BCE, the jury of citizens condemned him to death. Socrates left no written works, but his pupil Plato, 426 through 347 BCE, immortalized him in a series of dramatic dialogues. Plato used the Socratic method to analyze the nature of reality and of the polis. He developed the notion that reality, true reality, was not what could be seen and touched, but that ideas that gave form to these worldly ideas. He founded a school in Athens, the Academy, which was the first institution of learning in Western civilization. His successor as head of the Academy, Aristotle, 384 through 322 BCE, took the next step in the methodical approach to knowledge. He created logic, the method of rational thought that remains today the way knowledge is pursued and organized, and he made contributions to virtually every field, including ethics and politics, physics, botany, zoology, the study of poetry, and other forms of literature, and many other fields. The logical inheritor of Greek civilization was the Roman Republic. After the death of Alexander the Great, he died in 323 BCE, a new power rose to prominence in the Mediterranean world, and this was Rome, a city near the western coast of south-central Italy. The people of Rome belonged to a group of Indo-European tribes, later called Latins. They migrated from Central Europe into the Italian peninsula about 2000 BCE, and by 1000 BCE, the Italian tribes, which included the Latins, had settled most of the peninsula and had begun the task of clearing the forests and developing its agricultural potential. Soon after 800 BCE, a new commercially minded civilization developed in the north and the south. In the north, the Etruscans built fortified hill towns in the Lombard plain near the Apennines, and along the western coastal region down to Campania, the plain island. Let's go back to soon after. Soon after 800 BCE, new commercially minded civilizations developed in the north and the south. In the north, the Etruscans built fortified hill towns in the Lombard plain, in the Apennines, and along the western coastal region down to Campania, the plain inland from the Bay of Naples. In the south, colonies from Greece founded many cities and established control over the Italic tribes in their neighborhoods. The Greeks also settled the coast of Sicily, most notably the city-state of Syracuse. Rome originated as an Etruscan-type city during the late 7th or early 6th century BCE. There is now some controversy about whether the coalescing of the city was done by the Etruscans themselves or by local villagers trying to protect themselves against Etruscan expansion. But whatever the origins of Rome, the Etruscans did eventually gain control of the city and its region, and throughout the 6th century BCE, an Etruscan dynasty, the Tarquins, ruled Rome. About 510 BCE, Romans later fixed About 510 BCE, Romans later fixed the date as 509 BCE, but it remains uncertain. The local aristocracy ousted the Tarquins and established a republic controlled by the aristocratic families, the patricians. Stop. Nope. Ready? At that time, a new constitution was carefully wrought to prevent the rise of a new king or tyrant. 2 elected magistrates, the consuls, held chief executive power, while other officials, also elected in 2s or 3s, managed the treasury and presided over the legal system. The important magistrates held office for only 1 year at a time. In an emergency, the Constitution allowed for the establishment of a dictator who could hold authority only until the crisis had passed, and in no case could the dictator rule for more than 6 months. The electorate of citizens, as in Greece, only males were citizens. Let's start that again. The electorate of citizens, as in Greece only males were citizens, was organized as an assembly, which in turn was based on the centuriate, the system of military organization, probably going back to the Etruscan kings. In its original form, the centuriate was made up of a series of units of 100 men. Under the Republic, the citizens were organized into voting centuries of irregular size. This was an important new feature because it gave wealthy upper-class patricians control of the assembly. In normal times, the patricians governed this small republic. Only they could be elected to higher office. They controlled the assembly, not only through the centuriate system, but also through a client system in which the partisan families gave economic and other support to small farmers and city people in return for political loyalty, their votes. In addition, the patricians formed a council of former magistrates, the Senate, from senex, meaning elder, which wielded great authority in matters of state. In fact, until the late 4th century BCE, it was, let's go back. In addition, the patricians formed a council of former magistrates, the Senate, from the Latin word senex, which means elder, and the Senate wielded great authority in matters of state. In fact, until the late 4th century BCE, it seems that no act of the assembly was executed by the magistrates until the Senate had approved it. Nonetheless, the plebeians, the common citizens, gradually granted, let's go back. Nonetheless, there we go. Nonetheless, no. Next line. Next line. There
Up or down?
Down.
Up, I see.
There we go. I'm ready. Nonetheless, the plebeians, the common citizens, gradually gained important concessions from the patricians. About 450 BCE, plebeians forced the ruling classes to issue a written code of law, the 12 Tables. Roman government also united military and civilian government. As with the aristocracy of Greece, ancient functions of the Roman aristocracy, going back to the time of the kings of Etrusca, and neither the Romans nor anyone else in the ancient world thought to separate the two aspects of government. Both the military and the civilian government leaned upon one another. Romans, however, did begin the process that has led to the modern view that military and civil functions differ and should be separated. While the consuls were the commanders-in-chief of the army, the military authority was valid only outside the city limits. Thus, in Rome, where policy was made by the Senate and the magistrates, civil government held sway. The Romans did not want the army to interfere in the governmental process and prevented it by ending military discipline at the city walls. In the field, the citizen soldier was a soldier subject. In the field, the citizen soldier was a soldier subject to the strict discipline of the order of battle. But in the city, he was a citizen free to voice his opinion on matters of state and to vote as he wished. Because the consuls held office, both as magistrates and generals, for only 1 year, no one could build up the political authority based on military authority. When the Republic was founded, Rome controlled a territory of about 300 square miles, an area with a diameter of under 20 miles. The soil of the region was only moderately fertile, so Rome was famous for its martial, go back, the soil. The soil of the region was only moderately fertile, The soil of the region was only moderately fertile. Rome was famous for its malarial marshes. Thus, Rome's wealth had to be founded on a wider territory. Around the city, in Latinum, were other Latin and Etruscan communities which the Etruscan kings of Rome held dominated, back again, around the city, there we go. Around the city in Latinum were other Latin and Etruscan communities which the Etruscan kings of Rome had dominated, and the Republic inherited this domination. About 496 BCE, the Latin cities immediately around Rome formed Around 496 BCE, the Latin cities immediately around Rome formed a league and rebelled against the Republic. The Romans recognized that the Latin League was a powerful opponent and that they needed its support against other, particularly Etruscan neighbors. So instead of waging a war against the League, Rome made treaties with it. Latins and Romans were given rights in each other's courts, and the cities promised to give assistance to each other. As a result, the Romans were able to create a powerful armed force, and the alliance was able to expand its domination over central Italy. Colonies of Latin and Roman military veterans were established in conquered territories to maintain the power of the alliance. The settlement with the League had long-term effects on Roman policies toward other peoples. The Greek city-states jealously guarded entry into the citizenry and always remained under the power of a small, exclusive community of men. In the treaty with the Latins, however, Rome had taken a step toward opening its citizenship to outsiders, and in time, this became an important feature of Roman civic culture. If some of you all are familiar with your biblical history, you understood and remember that the Apostle Paul was a citizen of Rome from Tarsus who never had ever entered the city of Rome itself until the time came for his trial and execution. Ultimately, Rome became a city-state governed by its citizens, but with the power of an empire. Through a series of wars, Rome took over the entire peninsula. Through all these wars, the Romans developed both a first-rate military system and an ethos of never, ever giving up. The military system was based on the legion, the infantry unit of about 4,300 men, which was subdivided into smaller units for maneuverability. The officer corps was made up of young patricians, although wealthy plebeians also served in it after expansion back. The officer corps was made up of young patricians, although wealthy plebeians were also. The officer corps was made up of young patricians, although wealthy plebeians also served in it after the expansion of plebeian power, and it was led by the consuls. With its many subdivisions, the legion was a highly flexible unit. As a whole, it was a large force disciplined. As a whole, it was a large force of disciplined soldiers. Divided up into its constituent units, it could be deployed in a wide variety of formations. The smaller units could be closely controlled by their officers, and the chain of command leading up to the legendary commander. The small units could be closely controlled by their officers, and the chain of command leading up to the legionary commander made it possible to coordinate the fighting of the whole. Except for the brief career of Alexander of Macedon, the Roman armed forces were the best in the ancient world. The Romans' ability to come back from defeat, which became a hallmark of Roman character, rested on the subjection of Rome's dependencies and on the successful maintenance of its alliances. Rome's dependencies, I'll have to go back. The Romans' ability to come back from defeat, which became a hallmark of Roman character, rested on the subjugation of The Romans' ability to come back from defeat, which became a hallmark of the Roman character, rested on the subjugation. The Romans' ability to come back from defeat, which became a hallmark of the Roman character, rested on the subjection of Rome's dependencies and on the successful maintenance of its allies. I have to go back again. You got to stay ahead of me now. Go back. All right. The Romans' ability to come back from defeat, which became a hallmark of the Roman character, rested on the subjection of Romans' dependencies and on the successful maintenance of its alliances. Rome controlled a rich agricultural territory that supported a large population, and it therefore had superiority in manpower over all the enemies it faced. Even the strongest state of the Mediterranean world could not withstand the steady pressure that Rome could and did exert year after year after year.